All right, welcome back, everyone. I am circumnavigating Vancouver Island on this Hobie tandem island. This is the boat I've been kind of scheming to go around the island with for a few years now. I've had an older model for a number of years and recently just got this newer one. Got some solar power on it, some other cool things going on. I'll show you. The trip itself, thinking about 4 to 6 weeks. I'm going up the inside of the island, passing all the towns up the inside, and then I'm going to be sailing down the outside. I'm kind of expecting 4 to 6 weeks for total length, which is a somewhat leisurely pace according to my calculations. Um, Hoping to move up the inside a little faster and have a little more time on the outside so I can pick my weather windows a little more cautiously. We've got solar power, we've got pedal power, we've got sail power. We have lots of ways of doing it, and I'll show you how the boat works. So the boat itself is a 2022 Hobie Tandem Island. It's a two-seating sailing pedal kayak with pontoons that can fold in and out. It's very stable on the water. It's very hard to flip or pitch pull or capsize. I haven't been able to do it yet on this one or my older model. We've got these are the pontoons here. These are called amas, and then akas are the pontoon arms. They can fold back. These little buttons here, it's just everything pops out, and then they can fold back. Not when the tramps are installed. When the fabric is in place, they can't fold back. I've got some 3D printed shear pins here with spares, so if you were to hit something with the pontoon, the whole structure can kind of pop and release so that you don't break or bend any metal, anything like that. It's got two seating positions for the pedal drives. These are the reversible kick-up Hobie Mirage drives. These pedal drives are incredible. They work very well. They kick up on their own if you hit something. Super effective. We've got a roller furling sail here. It's about an 18-foot tall mast, all roller furling. They do make a spinnaker kit for this model, but I haven't installed it. I'm not sure I will. I might just fly a large kite, like a kite surfing kite, an idea that I had. So we've got the two seating positions, front and rear. The seats are the newer Hobie seats, which is super nice. I had an older model Tandem Island, and I had to make my own seats because they were so uncomfortable, the first ones. You had a wet bottom all day, and that's no fun. We've got the bow hatch, which I usually keep all my food in there. I feel like keeping that giant tool bag. I just pop it in and out of there. We've got hatches in the cockpit, of course, 8-inch hatches. And then we got a hatch at the back as well. The rudder is kick-up rudder, and with a rudder pin here that if it shears, you can just pull out the strings here and you can replace it. You can do it on the water. I've had to do that before. I've hit something, I don't know what, is it a log or something? It's a bit tricky to do when it's really rough out, but it is possible. I keep spare rudder pins are just back here. I've got a bunch that are 3D printed and a factory one as well. So you'll notice a lot of 3D printed parts on this boat. I've got a 3D printer. It's kind of a hobby of mine, so I like to 3D print. As far as boat systems go, and then we have a kick-up rudder here, or a dagger board that we can slide forward and back into the keel trunk. Sails a little better upwind when you have the wind on your port side. Just a little bit. The dagger board kind of sticks down a bit deeper, but it's not really noticeable. And then there's a lot of other kind of smaller details. The kick-up rudder is controllable from both seating positions. Have controls. Both seating positions have rudder handles, which is super nice. If you move one, the other one moves. You've got your furling line up front, which you can tie to your main sheet in the back, and you can actually control do mainsail furling from the front or the back, and you can control your main sheets front or back. So pretty well everything is controllable from the front or back, with the exception of the keel trunk, but you can kind of reach forward and flip that up or down, not too big of a deal. So I suppose now we'll get into the power system here. As you can see, we're currently charging up we're using the solar panels to charge up the battery. This vessel has an electric propulsion system that I've put together. We're relying on solar power to charge up the battery. The two larger solar panels in the front here, those are 170 watt sun power flexible panels that are installed onto fiberglass foam board. So this is actually a Schluter board. If anyone in the tiling industry or renovation industry might know what that is. It's like a foam board that's used for like tile backing, that sort of thing. It was just the right size, and already had a kind of fabric laminated on either side, so it was ready to take glass, and or to take the fiberglass, the epoxy, and it just happened to be just the right size and just the right thickness. I couldn't get a 1/2 inch foam board in my area. It was kind of hard to find, so I came across a Schluter board, and it just did the trick perfectly. A fiberglass aluminum 1/2 inch tube along the front and back edges. Through that we have a bungee cord with an adjustable cam clip. So yeah, pretty straightforward. They're nice and stiff, so they'll sit over top of my gear. I can use my gear as kind of a hinge point to angle it either forward, backward, left, or right. So the idea is to have a bit of flexibility for actually angling the panels to the sun when I'm under sail. Obviously they're not like this when I'm under sail. They're just sitting on top of the trampolines on top of my gear. I'll show you a photo of that here. And so the two front panels, 170 watt each rated. And then we have this overhead panel. This took me a while to sort of scheme up. I had this vision in my mind for an overhead panel solution that would provide both power as well as some shade, because some of these longer days at sea, just getting the sun beating on your head or on your body for hours and hours and hours is quite a challenge, especially if you're pedaling all day. Yeah, you can really cook yourself. So I wanted something that was overhead, but I wasn't sure how I was going to do it exactly. The panel itself is from Sunleaf Solar. They're a Canadian company from Saskatchewan. They make specific use carbon fiber reinforced panels. So this thing is like mega stiff, super rigid. It's got this slight curve to it, which gives it a lot of rigidity along its length. This is the 140 watt model, the G140, and rated for 140. And I've seen it put out about 130, which is pretty awesome here. And yeah, we see it's carbon fiber, so it's super duper stiff, and it's just the right length to kind of cover me when I'm seated. This whole thing can tilt and adjust, of course. This is all adjustable. You can tilt it at the rear, and you can tilt it at the front section here, just like that. You can set your angle however you like. Underway, boom. You want to set it like that, you can set it how you wish. Starting from the top here, so it's attached. I've got these kind of O-rings that are easy to take on and off for attachment. You can usually do them with one finger, or with one hand rather. There we go. And it's also got a spot for a zip tie down the middle. These are 3D printed as well. So I've got a releasable zip tie here. You can release these, maybe not with one hand, but anyhow, yeah, so you can do the rubber or the zip ties or both. And basically the tubing itself, we have a 1/2 inch kind of H frame on top beneath the panel, which the panel itself can slide forward and back on that. And then we have bicycle stems. So we have a 1-inch tube here, and then we have a bicycle stem, like a short length stem with 3D printed spacers to interface with the 1-inch tubing, which is nice that we have the PETG plastic there, because it allows for some flexibility, and it allows it to sort of tilt without too much binding, and you can sort of dial in your tightness to get it, like if the wind and waves are kind of making it move on its own, I can quickly just reach up and tighten it up, and it'll stay put. So then we have the kind of scorpion arm, as I'm calling it, the scorpion tail, which is, yeah, it's a 1-inch pipe that I bent myself. Top bend, not ideal. A little bit of a kink here in the top end, but the bottom bend was really good. I used a tube bender, but this is actually 6063, so it doesn't like to take a bend. I heated it up and was able to bend it okay. Yeah, not sure on the exact structural integrity now of it that I've heated it. I think it might be a bit more softer than it was originally when it was heat treated, but it's working for me. It's working great. We got another bicycle stem here. So this is an adjustable stem, so I can actually pitch the angle of this whole thing, either forward or back, along the bottom or at this hinge point. And of course, the whole thing will actually allow it to be rotated side to side. So I can actually use it to provide shade or deflect from the wind or spray. Super handy. I'm really pleased with how this has turned out. There was a few hot days there in the Southern Gulf Islands where, yeah, I was definitely hiding under it for shade. And then the 140 watts of power that it provides, and the fact that I can actually tilt it to the sun, I find I'm almost getting more, I'm able to get more power out of this panel than these ones, like individually, most of the time, just because I can tilt it so easily. If I change course, yeah, if the weather changes or something, or like over time the sun changes, I can just keep dialing it in. I can dialing it in, and then I can watch the power output on the MPPT PowerPoint tracking DC-DC charge controllers, which I'll go to next. So the panel comes in, the power comes in on the panel. It's kind of managed a little bit, cable routed here. We go forward, we go forward. We have cable routing in here. We got a little bit of a cable way here. And then here are our charge controllers. Now, it's not going to show the numbers on the screen very well. I might be able to adjust the exposure here a little bit. If I can decrease it, maybe it'll show. Or if I increase it, that'll increase the exposure time. That might do it. There we go. Kind of see it. So right now we're getting 5.8 amps on this left side. So that's for the two front panels. So those two 170 watters, we can't see, we're all washed out now, but those two 170 watt front panels, we're getting 5.7 amps on those right now. And yeah, pretty clear sun. It's washed out, but yeah, it's about 8 a.m. here this morning. Kind of end of July, so yeah, I've seen about 8 amps is about the maximum I've seen. I've seen about 8.5 amps from both of those coming in. And then this is our left one, or our right one is the overhead, which is not getting much right now. Let me just adjust the angle of it here. We had it catching the sun there, and there we go. Now we're getting 2.8, 2.9 amps on there. I've seen just over 3 amps on there, 3.5. So, I mean, yeah, we're at 39.5 volts. I think we'll probably be full here not too long at this rate. That's quite, yeah, it's quite a decent charge right now. We're getting about 8 amps of charge, so that's pretty sweet. A couple hundred watts there. That's not too bad. And then, so yeah, we've got a bunch of MC4 connectors here. These are solar kind of waterproof connectors. They've been holding up okay. I haven't noticed. I've been taking them apart kind of every other day, like on a dry day, and inspecting them for water ingress, and so far it's been okay. No water inside yet, no salt water. Actually used some self-amalgamating tape here to seal up the back ends of the connector. So I can still take these apart, but the ends where the cable come in is, I think, probably the most vulnerable spot, where it comes into the back here. And yeah, just some self-amalgamating tape. I'm going to do it all. I'm going to self-amalgamate all the connections and just it's been kind of wet. So it was raining yesterday, and I'm gonna take those apart when I get maybe a dry day or a couple dry days. Carrying on with the power system, so we have the two MPPT controllers. They're sitting in 3D printed cases. Then the power comes back and into our battery box here. So this battery box right now I've got open. Normally it sits closed back here on the rear deck. It's sitting on like a foam riser. It wasn't before, and it's very wet back here if you're sailing in 20-30 knots of wind. Basically everything on deck is very wet. This thing is almost like a surface submarine when you're sailing loaded, trying to get upwind. So this has so inside here we have a battery. I should start there. We've got the battery and we have the motor controller. So this is a 36 volt, 1 kilowatt hour battery. It's about 26 amp hours. And in here we have a speed controller inside there, tucked away inside. That's a Flip Sky V. Yeah, so it's a Vesk. It's a Vetter Vesk made by Flip Sky. It's the 75100 with Bluetooth built in. Here we have power connection. So from the battery, we have the controller, and then we have our 12 volt system here. So we have a little 12 volt converter. It takes a 36 volt, drops it down to 12, and that powers our 12 volt electronics here. We have a wireless phone charger that it's waterproof, they claim. I sealed it up as well with some additional sealant, and I just keep it inside this dry bag because we get spray here at this angle when we're underway and sailing in bigger winds. So yeah, we'll see how long it lasts. I'm kind of expecting it to die. Actually, don't have a spare one of those. It's one thing I don't have a spare of. And then we have this is a Garmin EcoMap 45 CV with the Clearview down sonar, and that works very good. Quite happy with it. Just wish it doesn't have an off course alarm, and it doesn't have a drift alarm like if you have it anchored. I kind of wish it had those features. Not that I do a lot of anchoring, but just features that would be nice to have. So yeah, the solar comes into the battery. We have the controller. I'll also show this little key switch that we have here. So I wanted a kind of a dead man switch for this whole system. So over here, this is a little 3D printed magnet holder, and this clips into place. And on the inside, we have a little reed switch. It's like a homing sensor, and that goes back to the controller. That's actually the power switch for the controller. So you can, I don't know if you can see the LED. So right now the LED is on. So if I pull this switch out, you can see it goes off. And if I put it back into place, you can see that the LED on the controller is back on. So LED on, and if I yank this, it's off. On, off. So, and that is of course tied to a string that goes up and clips onto me. So if I fall overboard, what have you, the motor is going to shut off. So it's not going to motor away on me. It's just a nice little safety feature. Or if I want to suddenly kill it, I can just yank it and the motor will stop turning. So that's the enclosure. It's in this kind of a Pelican style hard case here. We have two glands. One gland, it's kind of a triple port gland for the phase cables to the motor. And then we have a lower gland here. This gland, it's actually an e-bike Z9 style connector, which is like a common connector for like any hub motor, any e-bike hub motor. It's a round connector. It fit perfectly inside this gland. And I had this brainwave to use that cable because it's got three sort of larger, like 14 gauge maybe wires, and then it's got six other smaller cables, 6 other smaller wires in there. So I'm using 2 of them for the 12 volts that I'm passing forward, and then I'm using 3 for a throttle. That's like a backup throttle. I have a throttle control. So that's 5 of the small wires used, and then I'm using the remaining 2 are for the solar input. So this Z9 cable down here, it's a multi-cable. All those cables are inside of it in one single package here, and then that goes forward, and that kind of comes out into a harness that lives inside here. So this is a 3D printed kind of a cup adapter for my Garmin. This can swivel here, which is pretty nice. I can swivel it in or out, and the phone mount is just on a little 7/8 kind of nub there. And then yeah, so that mains harness comes into here, and inside another dry bag in here, it kind of octopuses out into the positive negative for the battery from the solar. So the solar comes into here, and then there's an Anderson connector in there that then takes it back to the battery via that Z9 cable through the bottom gland, and that comes in on a fuse. I think it's a 15 amp fuse I have in there for the solar. So if anything shorts out here, anything shorts out at all, it'll blow that fuse and not hopefully explode the battery or blow up the cables or connectors or something like that. So and then yeah, so the little throttle is actually tucked away into here. This is just a little potentiometer from Grin Technologies in Vancouver. So this is a little handlebar mounted pot. It's waterproof. It's all waterproof. I don't know. I actually don't use it. I actually use my phone to control the controller via Bluetooth, which has been generally working quite well. In a real downpour, like I had yesterday, I got caught in a thunderstorm out here. The screen becomes a hassle to use, but otherwise it's quite handy for setting my speeds. I can reconfigure the motor on the fly with the phone controller. There's a VESC app, and the controller has Bluetooth. So usually just from my seating position, I can actually control the motor on, off, that sort of thing. I can show that. Anyways, yeah, so the 12 volt, the throttle, the solar input power, that all is bundled up inside this connector in there, which I hope is still waterproof. There's a little drain in the bottom of that cup, so everything can conceivably drain out. I suppose I should have a look in there. Probably, yeah, on the next kind of really dry day, I'll take a look in there and see what's going on. Hopefully everything's still dry. No signs of a problem, everything's still working. So maybe it's best to just let sleeping dogs lie in that regard. So I think that is basically the power system here. I've got some spare keys hanging out, spare ignition magnet keys hanging out. Yeah, so got a fishing rod on the back here, of course. I haven't fished yet, but I would like to fish. Just haven't really had time. I've been focusing on making headway here. So if we go to the phone here, we can go to the VESC. We can connect. I'll show you how this is all done. So we got the cool thing about being able to pair to your motor is that you've got all kinds of real-time data. And I love data. So I just turned that on. There she goes. Oh, cool. It doesn't look like it's spinning fast because of the frame rate, but it definitely is. I'll release it. There you go. We got forward and reverse, of course. This is a 3D printed propeller as well. The propeller that this motor came with, it's an aluminum propeller, is super not true. It's like completely off axis. It's an aluminum propeller, and it's a shame that it's so not true. Like they milled the shaft at like an angle. It's just terrible. So maybe I can find a 10mm shaft propeller somewhere with a pin on it. It's got like a little 5mm pin, a shear pin on it. So yeah, we'll see. But the 3D printed one's working great, actually. So actually, I swapped in this motor. This is a 65121. I had an Outrunner on here originally with a bunch of 3D printed blades, which were super efficient, super effective, but the blades kept snapping. So I decided to swap out the heavier motor. I've still got the Outrunner as a spare. It's a 6374 Outrunner. and I've got it as a spare, and I've still got some blades for it. So I've got a whole other spare motor. I've got a whole spare controller already configured, already connectorized. Everything is just ready to plug and play and ready to go. So I've got some spares. And then, yeah, of course, which is really cool too, I can monitor real time. I can monitor power. You know, I can set it to run at a certain RPM, a certain current. I can configure the motor settings, low voltage cutoffs for the battery, that sort of thing. It's super, super nice to have that level of control. I like, I like the data, and I can log. So I can log files. I can log, like, you know, GPS speed and all the power, voltages, everything coming in, and so that's super neat. One other thing about this battery box too, the controller actually has a. Let's turn this off. The controller is mounted on this aluminum plate inside here for cooling. So if I flip this over, I'll come around the other side, easier to show. It's a bit windy now. So there's a cooling plate back here, and I've kind of silicone mounted with some thermal paste inside there. That's a cooling plate, so it's got water cooling, which is super effective. The whole thing never really gets up over 21 degrees Celsius. So that's very effective. It's sitting on this foam riser because I didn't have that before, and it's kind of sitting in a puddle. And I actually had to reseal that aluminum plate a couple days ago because there was water getting into there, which is not good. The polyurethane did not bind to the. You got a plane coming in. Nice. Beauty. Yeah, so the polyurethane that I used to bond the plate to the case here did not bite onto this. I don't know if it's HDPE or PET case. I'm not entirely sure, but it does not want to take an adhesive. So I actually have to peel the whole metal cooling plate out, and I got some plastic weld JB and some plastic bonder JB. I used one on the inside, one on the outside. I don't know which one's better for this type of plastic, but they both seem to be holding okay now. And now that it's on this riser, and I sort of cut out a little space for that cooling plate, it's not going to be pressing up on the cooling plate, kind of wanting to push it back in to the case. So I'm hoping now it's just going to be structurally more sound, and it's not going to fail that seal again. So now that it sits on this riser, it gets strapped into the barring here, and I've also just been putting the whole thing in a bag. Like I said, when I'm sailing underway 20-30 knots, basically there's an incredible amount of spray that's happening here. Everything is completely soaked. So there's, like, you know, high velocity water spray coming directly at these glands at the, you know, case seal, and it was holding up fine for several days, and then I noticed a bit of water in there, and upon inspection I found that the sealant on that mounting plate was basically just kind of peeling off. So I think that was where the water ingress was occurring. I think it's sorted now, and I just got it bagged now just in case. Not so elegant. I was actually going to mount that whole case here between these two vertical tubes in an upright position so that it would be completely out of the pool of water back here, but then I got this kind of scorpion tail idea for the solar mount. So I think I could still fit the case in there if I made a new scorpion mount, a new kind of scorpion tail. If I just made it lower, like if I made the scorpion tail start lower, and then made the back section a bit taller, so it's still clear my head, I think I could still put the case there. So I might do that in the future. And I'm trying to think if there's anything more. I'll go over my safety gear briefly here. So, sorry, it's a bit windy again. So safety gear wise, I've got a knife on the front seat in case I get fouled up in the ropes. Here we've got a first aid kit on deck. We got some bangers, some bear bangers. We got flares. We got bear spray. We got a horn in there as well. I've got a little folding grapple anchor setup, currently holding the boat on shore. I'll go over these carbon fiber walking sticks as well. These are extendable walking poles. I don't carry the assembled paddle on deck because it's kind of too big and bulky. Those walking sticks are perfect for just pushing off the ground when you're launching. You know, they're 3-4 feet long, just long enough to kind of push you off. And then I find once I'm in, you know, 2 feet of water, I can drop the drives. I can pedal, you know, forward, back. I can put the motor in. So, and then they fold up and I can stow them on deck. Super nice. And if I go hiking, I've got hiking poles. Of course, oh yeah, I'll mention too these fenders. I've got these super long white fenders. You might be wondering what those are for. I should use those to roll the boat up and down the beach. So right now the tide is still coming in a little bit. I'm waiting for the high tide to launch here, and I can actually put those fenders underneath the boat and the whole thing just rolls. It rolls super easy. I've got 2 of them. So you kind of put one in, you start rolling it, and then you put the other one in kind of when the other one's halfway, and then you kind of do this, you know, you kind of do this rotation. One comes out, you put it in. It's a bit of a faff, but it sure beats, you know, just kind of yanking on it. And also if you're on a rocky beach, like, you know, sometimes you got really jagged rocks covered in barnacles, not so nice on the hull. So I've got 2 of those fenders that I use to maneuver the boat. And then also I can use them on deck to kind of help angle the solar panel. They're all tied up on deck. I've got dry bags for all my gear. I use Ortlieb panniers, and I can clip them onto these tubes. I've got these 1/2-inch tubes here, and I can clip my panniers onto them. They're the waterproof Ortlieb panniers. And then I just have the rest of the odd items in dry sacks. Safety gear wise, we have coffee here, of course, pieces of safety kit. And this is a dry suit, so it's at the feet. I've got these kind of sealed up booties, so my feet are sealed. And then at the wrist, it has these gaskets, and it's got a neck gasket as well. And then it's got a main front or large front zipper, so I can get into it. It's got a P zipper, which is super handy. That's kind of what I'm calling the body bag when I wear it, and whether it's, you know, getting a little gnarly, I call it my body bag. Anyways, and then of course I have a life jacket. I've got 2 life jackets on board. I'm currently just on my own, but a friend might join me. We'll see. And but it's just nice to have a spare life jacket as well. If mine, you know, blows, if I forget it on the beach or whatever, something foolish like that, I've got another one. So this is my main life jacket here, and on it there's some stuff that is always clipped on here. I have my Garmin InReach, of course. So this is the satellite comms. I can message on here. I've got a constant tracker going. The battery life is amazing. I'm finding I only need to charge it up, I don't know, maybe once a week or so, or maybe once every 4 or 5 days. I've been charging it like once every 3 days. But like I charged this up a full day ago and we're at 90%. So it's been over 24 hours and it's only at 90%, and it's been tracking me every 10 minutes. So I can share a link to my friends and family. They can see where I'm going, see what I'm doing. So that's pretty good. I've got like a little tiny bear, you know, like a little tiny dog bear spray on here, just in case. I've got a whistle, of course. That's, you know, all this stuff is tied and clipped on, because when you're walking around the deck on this thing, you're leaning over and everything just starts falling out of your pockets. So that's just how it goes on the water. It's super easy to drop stuff in. So here I've got one knife, so it's kind of like a sailing knife. That's attached at my side. Here I have a little bike multi-tool. So this is for adjusting any of the stems, I've got a Phillips, a slot, or I got a Phillips and a slot on here, and a bunch of hex. That's all tied and clipped on, so I can't lose it. I've got some small binoculars inside here, just for spotting and whatnot, just for fun. Little binos in there, real cheap set. I'm not too fussed about ruining in the water. And I've got a kind of a crotch strap for this life jacket as well, but I don't use that very much. And then of course in here I've got my radio as well. I keep this little bow fang on me. It's waterproof and it's USB-C charging, which is super nice. So yeah, it's easy to keep charged. I can just kind of charge this up every night with the rest of my gear. And oh, I left it on. It's dead. Oh no, it's not dead. Okay, great. So yeah, this is the UV17R. It can do dual watch, so I usually just watch 16 and 11. What's nice too is that it has an FM radio on it, so
Channel mode.
if you're bored out there, you can put on the radio, you can scan the radio, and yeah. Oh, I gotta lock on.
Lodge, and we've reached owner Karen Decor.
There you
Hello,
go.
Karen.
You got FM radio,
Hello.
and
How are you
it'll
this
actually
morning after
switch back
leaving?
to VHF if you're watching a channel. So you can have it on 16 and then be listening to the radio, and if any transmission comes in, it'll switch back to 16 on its own. So handy little radio. They're cheap. If you drop them in the water, it's not the end of the world. I also have a backup. I have an ICOM 73 handheld. I keep that one in a sealed bag. That's kind of the backup radio. And then of course I've got a suite of cell phones. I've got 3 cell phones total. This one I'm recording on, a Pixel 6. And then I have a Samsung S23. That's kind of my main phone with my SIM. So and then I have a Motorola backup phone. So I've got several phones backup because I can control the motor with the phones, but I don't need to. I can use the throttle. So, but yeah, it's just phones are so light, they're so small, and I got a lot of space on here, so I thought might as well bring some spares. They can be critical in certain situations for internet, yeah, and then you can always dial 911 on the phone even if it doesn't have a SIM. So part of the safety gear, I would say. And yeah, so of course if I fall overboard, I can always just press the SOS button on here. That'll transmit my location real time, and I think I could even two-way message with authorities. I got my phone on me, of course, if I fall in I actually usually have 2 phones on my life jacket, or at least one if the other one's in the wireless charge base. So I think I'm pretty kitted out, safety wise. I don't know if there's anything I'm missing. I've got a horn too. I keep a little pump horn in the back of the seat there, and it's got a whistle, of course, too. So that whistle's super duper loud. It's a 3D printed whistle, and it's like, I think it was like a design competition for the loudest whistle, and yeah, this thing is like crazy. Ow, that really hurt my ears. So yeah, spare life jacket, and then of course food. I kind of keep all my food in here. I kind of divided it mostly into these kind of lunch and dinner bags. So the lunch bag, I'll keep one in the cockpit. So it's like canned fish, canned meat, and crackers. So I can just kind of on the fly munch. I made a bunch of my own beef jerky. I got a dehydrator. This stuff is delicious. Just salt and pepper and dehydrate. That's it. So super simple. Got some Pringles. Lots of oats. I got some protein powder. Haven't really tapped into that yet. Kind of a reserve. Oat milk. Mayonnaises. Sealed up mayo in the little small containers. Yeah, you can kind of get away with bringing heavier food. Don't need to pack ultralight on here. Got a lot of stowage. Of course, it helps to be lighter. It's much easier to maneuver the boat on land. Yank it off the shore. It's much easier when it's, not laden full of crap. But for the most part, that is it. Let's have a look at and see what we're charging at now. So just in that time since we last looked here, you can see now we are at 40.4 volts and still charging. So that's great. Probably by the time I make my oatmeal and pack up, get everything loaded, the tide will be high, and I'll be pretty well near fully charged. So that's great. I'm trying to get to Campbell River today. We'll see how that goes. With any luck, we'll make it. I think it's about, about 50 kilometers. I need to take a look again at my route. I kind of got caught in this insane thunderstorm yesterday, just off Cape Lazo, and it absolutely hammered me. It was a little bit scary. I just kind of saw the clouds forming, and I saw the forecast was, some were calling for thunder, some were not, but it definitely came in. It was thunder, lightning, and just sheeting rain. I could not see beyond maybe 50 feet around me. It was just a wash. The canopy was the overhead panel was keeping the rain off me, which is again amazing for rain as well. Everything was holding together. So that's about it. That's my yeah, that's my circumnavigation rig. So far we're about a week in. Hoping to get to Hardy by the end of sometime next week. Right now I was thinking kind of 2 weeks up, and then maybe 2 weeks down or 3 weeks down on the west side. And that's the boat. Just briefly go over the Ortliebs that I use on deck. These are German-made bicycle panniers. They're roll top, so they kind of roll over and then they clip together. They're super great for cycling, and turns out that they're also very handy for boating on the Hobie. They kind of clip right on deck beneath the panels, and I can kind of move them around deck and angle the panels effectively. That's kind of the most maybe noteworthy thing about the camping setup is this the Ortliebs. And then everything else is basically just typical, kind of dry bag. I have my tent in a dry bag. Cot goes inside the front hatch. I've got a tool bag. This is a little toolkit I have in here. I'll show that later. And then, just sleeping bag and a dry bag. Got my electronics. They go all in the Ortlieb, kind of power banks and connectors, stuff like that. Bluetooth speaker, stove. I got like breakfast stuff with the coffee, oatmeal in there, and then I got just kind of separate from my main lunch kit. Got a little jet boil. All that kind of pretty typical stuff. Nothing really too fancy there. And that's about it. Okay, so this is the toolkit. We've got some little cotton wipes, fluid film. The stuff is great. Natural sheep wool oil. Super effective for keeping things from rusting. I've kind of coated all the aluminum on the solar framing with that, and I kind of recoat it every week or so when it looks like it's starting to corrode. And then I've got all kinds of doodads in here. Got some acetone, various JB welds, crimpers for the solar connectors, cabling, various USB-C to 12 volt adapters, zip ties. I got a multimeter, of course. Always got to have a multimeter. Various ratchet screwdriver sets, various adhesives, tapes, wires, mounting tape. Just all a bunch of kind of electronic related stuff. Spare carabiners, just all that kind of stuff. So pretty extensive toolkit. Some more rubbing alcohol that kind of lives in my toolkit as well for cleaning connectors. All right, so this is the boat basically ready for launch. So going into harbor today. I'm gonna grab a breakfast in harbor and another coffee, and a breakfast sandwich. Why not? I'm in harbor, make the most of it. So it's not fully lashed, ready for the open waters, but that's kind of it. The panels sit on top of the gear like that, and I kind of sit a bunch of gear in the front, seat on dry bags, and that's sort of it. You see it's sitting on that fender in the back, that roller. It's supporting it up, so it's going to roll down this beach, no problem. I'll show you guys how that goes in a moment here. You see the gear underneath the solar panels, and then I can put the fenders on top of the gear. It's all tied down, allows me to angle the panels. There it is. Well, that's about all that I can think of at the moment. If I missed anything, if you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask in the comments, and I will answer them as I can. Should have internet for a little while yet, and then I won't for a while. So ask any questions, and I'll come in with answers when I can. And it's been a long time coming. For some of you that have seen my channel before, I've been working on electric outboards for years now. Towing this boat by bike and fiddling with power systems for a long time. So finally at the point where I feel like I can take some time and circumnavigate the island. So thanks for checking it out, and I'll catch you in the comments.